special one tonight. This is the X-Men 97 review. I got to come up with a name for this podcast. Maybe call it Greeks and Geeks or something like
Like that.
that.
I didn't hear like the theme song though, man. That was like
If I get the original theme song, it'll copyright, man.
got you. Okay.
You know what I would need? Somebody would have to like redo the song. Like do a cover version, and then I could play it.
Got it. Understood.
But welcome everybody, all X-Men fans out there. This is the X-Men 97 review, and very excited about the topic. As a lot of you know, I'm a hardcore Marvel DC fan. I love what I love the universe. I love what's going on. Some of the stuff I don't like, some of the stuff I do like, but that's part of the excitement of the universe. But let me introduce the panel tonight. We got Damon in the building, and we got El Cangri, Carlos Perez in the building. For those of you that don't know, they get into some heated debates on comic books, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, you name it. But it's all love, man, because it's a passionate fan base, and a lot of times we want shit our way, because we're used to something going one way growing up and then seeing the changes. Some of the changes we like, some of the changes we don't like, but at the end of the day, it's all positive. So let's start it off. The X-Men appeal. That's our first topic. Let's get to know how we got to know the X-Men. The history of the animation briefly. The X-Men were animated starting in the 60s through the 90s was the heyday, and then in the 2000s, you had the kind of subpar stuff. So in the 60s, we had the Marvel superheroes, which were cartoon shorts. It ran only in 1966. As you can see, the animation looks crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very 60s. You see Cyclops, Jean Grey's there, but back then she was known as Marvel Girl. Angel, you got Beast, who wasn't blue yet, and then Iceman. After that, I think was when it really started getting popular. And this is around the time I first knew about the X-Men. Probably Damon too.
Same.
80s, right? You had Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which ran from 81 until 83. But then they reruns throughout that decade, and I think into the early 90s, right, D?
Yeah. I mean, it started to phase out like in mid 80s, like late, and then they started to just, But Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends was like, I religiously watched that.
Yeah. And was that the first time you saw the X-Men?
I mean, we're going back a lot of years, man. So I think it was a combination of things for me, man. It was the TV shows. My cousin and I were very much into comic books at the time, man. So I remember going to his house, and he was a little older than me, right? So he would have things that I hadn't gotten yet, and I would go there and just kind of see his collection and see what he had, right? So
hold that thought, because we're gonna get to how you first got to know the X-Men and you fell in love with the franchise. Let's just do this quick history real quick, and then we'll get right into it, Damon.
Okay.
So 81 to 83, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That's when X-Men, a lot of the kids from the 80s really started to get to know X-Men. And then we got in 1989, this one was a flop. It was just a pilot, Pride of the X-Men. As you can see, that's not Captain Marvel there for all of you out there. That's Dazzler. They never got to show this in a full series in 89. I guess they didn't have faith in it. So instead, they released it as a VHS, and it was the plot was surrounding Kitty Pryde. not a lot of people were interested in Kitty Pryde at the time, unfortunately. So it was just released as a VHS. But the video game came out based on this. You remember this one, right?
Well, it came out in arcade first.
Yeah. It had like that gauntlet, right? That gauntlet kind of gameplay, right?
Yeah. So, you know, and it was a very Konami style game. You know, it was sort of like
it was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle arcade game too.
Right. Exactly.
So after that, that's when things started heating up. We got the animated series from 92 to 97. Part of the inspiration to this animated series was the Batman animated series, because that was a hit for Warner Brothers, coming out in 1990. And X-Men, the animated series, was sort of the response to that. And both of those cartoons were groundbreaking.
That and this and Spider-Man, right? These are the Spider-Man animated series kind of came out around the same time frame.
Exactly. So X-Men 97 picks up right after this. Like I said before, there were other X-Men cartoons that came out that were sort of hit or miss. We had X-Men Evolution and what was the other one?
Wolverine and his X-Men. Yeah, none of them were hits though. Like none of them were like bangers by any means.
Exactly. The animated series was the one. That was the one that got everybody hooked. So I guess the first topic, you know, in regards to the X-Men appeal, I want you guys to talk about, you know, the first time you fell in love with the X-Men and how those stories impacted your life. Damon, you started telling us a little bit. Can you continue?
Yeah. So like I said, man, it was a combination. It wasn't just one thing per se, right? It was the TV shows, it was collecting comic books, it was talking things over with my cousin, going over his house, checking out his collection, you know, just kind of discussing things with friends. Then there was the toys that were coming out, right? Like, and it was just, you know, like just growing up, man, like making Wolverine claws with sticks and shit, you know, just, you know, reenacting things that you would watch on TV or reading the comic books, man. And it's just like, I think for me, obviously, Wolverine is my favorite character. He's always been, right? Logan's always been my favorite, and obviously him being part of the X-Men just had me resonate with the X-Men the most, right? Like it was my favorite group. He was my favorite character. He still is. They still are. So you know, as you get older, you just you start picking and choosing the ones you like most. Pay attention to those. Pay attention a little less attention to others, and you just kind of vibe and just grow with it, evolve with it.
All right. And this was late 80s, early 90s, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, like I had a hell of a collection, toys and collectibles, and then I kind of like, it was weird, man. When I was going to college, I started selling some of it, I'm just a person who kind of takes care of their stuff. So, everything was in pristine condition. And I kept some and I got rid of some. And it's weird, like, you kind of grow out of it. And then at some point I circled back and I got back into collecting maybe, I don't know, the last 5 or 6 years per se. So now I got a whole basement of collectibles, like from kind of like, repurposing things and getting, my favorites from childhood and restoring them. And, I still have a lot of stuff. So I have them on display. I have them, hung, and it's a pretty cool nostalgic room, man. It's nice to go down there and just forget about whatever the fuck and just, go back to a time where it was much simpler.
Listen, in one of the future episodes, we'd love to get a tour of that room. Virtual.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is my office. You can see, I got a lot of Star Wars power in here, man. So, it's definitely an aesthetic that I enjoy, being.
Awesome. Carlos, what's your story?
So for me, it was mostly really the comic books that got me into it. I started getting into comic books, I would say around 89, 90. I was like 7, right? And so I started getting into the comic books. At first, I was always into Marvel. I never really vibe with DC quite that much. And so I was really into the cosmic side of Marvel. I was into Silver Surfer, Fantastic Four, comic books and stuff like that. And then the comic book that got me really into X-Men was actually X-Force. I remember getting X-Force #1, which had Cable in it. And they were just edgy, man. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the other comic books were really like, they were cool, but you know, X-Force was really edgy at that time. The art style with Jim Lee was just spectacular and really kind of pulled me in. And so what happened was I was reading X-Force religiously. And then around X-Force #7 or something like that, they went into, at the time, the comic Marvel would do these crossovers. And so they got into a crossover. And for me to read the crossover, I had to go and pick up X-Men. I had to go and pick up X-Factor. I had to go and pick up Uncanny X-Men. And I started to fall in love with all of the X-Men characters. I went a period of time without paying attention to the comic books. I moved to Colombia when I was like 10. It was hard to get the comic books. I stopped paying attention to it. I did watch the animated series religiously. I was into it. And then when I came back to the States in 2001, wasn't really, you know, I think the comic book movies starting to come out kind of got me back into it. And I picked up X-Men again right around the Messiah Complex period, where I think in those 2000s, which a lot of people aren't into it, but I was into like Cyclops going dark, turning villain eventually and stuff like that. And I've been kind of just going through all the Marvel comic books since, man. I went back, I read all the old X-Men stuff, like Days of Future Past, all of that. I'm a big fan.
Awesome. Okay, so and thanks, brother, for sharing your story. People in the comments, if you can write your experience the first time you guys knew about the X-Men and how it affected your life, or maybe any stories about the X-Men that resonated with you, write it in the comments. If you're watching it on Facebook, if you're watching this on Facebook, hit the link that I pinned so we can see your name and read your comment. Okay, so when they announced in 2021, when they announced that X-Men 97 was coming out, what was your reaction? Was there a little bit of skepticism since, you know, Disney was taking over? Were you worried that they were going to fuck with the characters? You know, they just announced it. They didn't really give any details. Those details started trickling in slowly. You know, Kevin Feige said that he'll only do it if the original cast members come back and the original music, then he'll do it. That kind of gave me some hope. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your initial reaction in 2021 when you heard they were bringing it back. Damon.
You know, for me, I was just like, is it gonna be a remake, or wasn't sure what it was gonna be, right? And when it finally did come out, and it wasn't a remake, it was a continuation of what happened back then. I was so pleasantly surprised, right? Like, you know, things have progressed, right? Like, what has happened since then, right? And they've introduced all of these wonderful new, you know, happenings of like with Rogue and Magneto and Jean being pregnant, right? Like, we knew they had a kid, right? But we never actually saw that. Like, this is all like, you know, okay, now we get to experience it, we get to watch it, you know, and they're finally giving Cyclops, I think, the shine that he so deserves, because he's like one of the he's a badass character, man, but he never gets the shine that he really deserves. So they're giving it to him now. I could also tell that
But when they announced it, we really didn't know that.
No, we didn't know any of this, right? So it's like, I was like, well, if they're just gonna remake it, then what's special about that, right? So I was kind of like, all right, man, let's see what it is. I was like I said, like you and I had spoken earlier, like I'm such a diehard fan. I gotta watch. I have to see what it's at least about, right? And then we'll go from there. But I was pleasantly surprised when it finally came out and I watched it, and the writing is just so like, wow, the writing is amazing.
Exactly. And
it doesn't feel like a cartoon at all. Like it definitely had, like when I watch Invincible, like we had, you know, Touch Base, I don't feel like I'm watching a cartoon. I feel like I'm watching, like, you know, like a live action, you know, like it's animated and all that, but the writing is so good, it doesn't feel like a cartoon at all.
Exactly. 100%. What about you, Kangri?
I think I was skeptical, but I was skeptical because Marvel animated hadn't really been going right. I think Marvel animated tried to keep up with DC animated studio for a long time, and DC was just kicking their ass. They had a couple of those
With the new
ultimate,
stuff. You're talking about with the new stuff.
right? Like
Marvel
yeah, like in
had
the
some real
2000s,
stuff.
right? They had those little movies like the Ultimate Avengers. They had a couple of animated movies and they were all right, but like in general, Marvel animated had just completely ignored the animated side of things for a while. And then when the Disney merger was final, they completely ignored the animated side of things for the most part, right? And so I was concerned because I didn't know kind of who's going to be in charge, who's going to be focused, like is it gonna, and then especially if you're tying it back to the animated series, which is so beloved, then you got to do it right. And so I was definitely hesitant at first. As things started, but you know, like Damon said, right? I'm a fan. I'm gonna watch it regardless. Like anything Marvel puts out, even if I think it's gonna be garbage, I'm probably gonna watch it anyway. And so, just like Damon, I'm pleasantly surprised for sure.
Yeah. So let's get to that iconic opening sequence, right? The show starting, we're watching episode 1. That opening sequence comes on. Take us there. What's going through your mind, Damon?
So, my son and I don't know, it's so wonderful. Like I love geeking out with him, right? It's almost like I get to relive my childhood through him, right? So I was like, hey, X-Men I told him how to give him like a little history. I'm like, there used to be this cartoon and X-Men, and it ended in '97, and we redid it. I was like, do you want to watch it? He was like, yeah, all right, I'm down, right? So we put it on, and when that opening scene came on, like it was like I'm like, you gotta listen to this. This is the dopest shit. And he was like, oh, he didn't get it right because it was probably the first time he was ever hearing it. And but now when we watch it, it's like we don't fast forward. Like we let that shit play, man. Like it sent chills down my spine, right? It was just like, it's just so like, oh man, it hit all the right spots.
Hell yeah.
And then to be able to do it with my son, right, is even more awesome.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing to share that with your son. I was watching that opening sequence for the first time. I let it run through in normal speed. I watched the whole episode. Then I watched the whole episode again, and I was pausing it. And if you see the opening logo, I wish I could play it, but Marvel's crazy with the copyrights. If you see the background in the red Marvel animation logo, you see the old Spider-Man in the background. You see the old Hulk. You see the old Iron Man, like just flashes of it.
I didn't see it, man. I gotta look for it.
You gotta look at it and slow it down. And
shit! I had no idea.
It gets into your subconscious. And like you said, the music came on, and then they kept that old school animation, which that's what worried me, was the animation. To me, they had to keep it old school. Obviously, the colors are a little brighter, it's a little smoother, but it has that old school feel, that little stutter kind of animation. So yeah, man, I thought it was great. Carlos, your thoughts?
I loved it. Like to me, that was key, right? Keeping that. First of all, that song is crazy, right? Like that song is so iconic. There's an account I follow on Instagram that does like trap remixes of these like iconic nerdy songs, and my favorite one by far is this one. Like this song is just epic. I was when I started to see stills and like pictures as they were getting ready to release, I was a little concerned about the drawing style because I like the drawing style of the original better. There's slight differences. Like I didn't like how Magneto's face looked. I wasn't necessarily sure if I liked how Storm's face looked. But, drawing is one thing and animation is another thing. I think the animation, like you said, it's kind of taking that style of the 90s, but making it smoother and taking it like to the next level, applying the things about today's contemporary technology and skills and all that, but keeping it kind of with that fresh, keeping it with that 90s kind of feel to it. So I absolutely loved it. I thought they nailed it perfectly. I did.
Storm. They darkened Storm, which I liked because it matches
Yeah.
the comic book. Remember, in the original,
Yep.
Storm was very, very light. She almost looked kind of Arabic.
But she had like she had long hair. Like they changed her. Yeah, they made her more modern.
She looks like Storm. Like she looks like Storm that I remember from the comic books, which is
Yeah. So Storm in the 80s definitely. So Storm has kind of gone with a couple of different like hairstyles throughout the years, but like they definitely went with like the mohawk look that she had in the 80s. She had like a real kind of punk rock look, like in the 80s, like in Days of Future Past and stuff like that. I feel like they went with that look. But yeah, like I'm actually thinking of a pet peeve of mine about today's episode that we're not going to talk about, so I'm like ignoring that for now.
That's for part 2.
Yeah. So I'm not going to talk about it, but I like how they made Storm look. Now that I'm seeing it animated, but yeah, like right there, like Magneto's face looked like super pale and weird. I don't know, they drew it weird compared to how he looked in the original. And when I saw the stills of it, I was concerned. But when you see it animated and playing through, and especially watching the episode, I have no complaints. Like they did a great job with it.
Okay, so what do you think about Magneto's new uniform? I don't like it, man.
I don't mind it. I just don't like the big M. Like it's just so like.
I don't like the cutoffs. It's like a ball gown kind of thing. Right? The gloves all the way up to the elbows. I don't know.
I dig the long hair. Like it makes sense because he used to have the helmet, so you can't have all that hair with the helmet, right? So it would make sense to take the helmet off, but then go the complete opposite direction and give him like these long locks, right? Like I get all that.
Well, he doesn't need the helmet anymore.
Right. But I mean, if you're wearing a helmet, you can't have that full head of hair, right? It was probably it's short, right? It's got to be short. So now it's like, oh, he's not wearing a helmet, so let's give him this fucking Adonis thing going on.
I mean, it's a callback to a different comic book, right? He kind of went through, I forget what storyline or what era they kind of moved them into this exact outfit that he has in '97, but I like the red and purple with the helmet better, honestly. So, but he did have that outfit with the big ass M in the comic book at some point. I forget what.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever liked that big M thing.
Yeah.
But I'm digging his new, like he's like very suave, right? He's kind of got like a little player thing going on, like a very playboyish, I'm not opposed to it, and I think it's fresh. I think it's a fresh perspective. Like I think it's, something we probably weren't expecting, right? So I think they did him right. They did him some justice, Aside from what he's looking like I'm definitely digging his new persona, his new thing going for.
Well, his new attitude, exactly, because his best friend died. He's on an I told you so campaign. So now no other mutants could tell him you're wrong. He was right the whole time, and now
and simultaneously I love the fact that you just don't know, right? Like you want to believe he's turned the leaf, but you're not really sure. You're waiting for it.
And we're getting to that.
They keep you right there, man. They keep you like, I'm not fully convinced, but I want to, but I'm not sure, right? And they do an amazing job doing that, right? Because they keep you in limbo. They keep you intrigued.
Yep.
Absolutely. So let's get to episode 1, To Me, My X-Men, right? First impressions. Let's talk animation quality, key takeaways, likes and dislikes. And Damon, I know you're an artist, you're a creative director. Use your creative eye, to give us some feedback. Quick plot. It starts out the FOH, which is a great acronym. Fuck out of here.
Yeah, that was.
I guess we didn't know what it was back in the 90s. It happened to be fuck out of here now because fuck out of here didn't exist in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's a humanity, but it's kind of cool that that's the acronym. They're developing a weapon. They captured a young mutant, a young Latino boy. They got the collar on him. They're ready to torture him. Boom, X-Men come in. So, opening shot, right? It's the New York skyline. Bam, here it is. As an artist, Damon, what did you think of that opening shot?
Well, it has the twin towers are still there, right? Like, didn't that throw you off a little bit?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, if it's supposed to be now, then it shouldn't be there, right? Like,
No. It's 97, man. They're there.
Oh,
2001, they weren't there. This is 97, which I liked. I was like, okay. They made sure the Twin Towers was there. It's New York in the 90s. No cell phones. None of that stuff. So no internet. So, opening shot established everything. What were your first impressions of the episode, Damon?
the first one, I thought it was. Like I said, it was all the things I had said. Like they paid homage to that. You got a glimpse of like, okay, this is a continuation. It's not a remake. You get like caught wind that Professor X is not in the picture at the moment, right? You're just like you're kind of like it's a bunch of nostalgia, and you're trying to catch up with what happened then and what's happening now. And like I have all these little like nuances, the FOI, as FOH. You're looking at her like Storm, right? She came in, and then it's like these guys with the things on their arms. You're looking for all the upgrades and how they kind of try to level things up from then. And for me, it was just kind of getting your bearings of like, okay, this is where we are. This is the direction it's going in. And then just dealing with the nostalgia of like, this is pretty fucking awesome.
Carlos, what were your first impressions?
One, I noticed a lot of little things. Like one of the things that I love the most as a comic book reader, and especially one who spent more time in the like kind of like the sidebar comic books like X-Force, X-Factor, all of that. The original series did a great job of doing cameos for those other characters that weren't main characters in the X-Men show. Like they have an episode, and Nightcrawler pops up. They have an episode, Cable pops up. They have an episode, and Sunspot is the Latino kid that you're talking about, Roberto da Costa. He was a New Mutant, and then he was an X-Force, one of my favorite characters. So him just starting off right off the bat, like, is one of those cameos, exactly like the 90s used to do it, that I really loved. And then I think for me, the highlight was obviously the fight with the Sentinels. I think one of the things that they improved on from the 90s show was they really gave a glance of like how powerful these mutants can really be. Cyclops, like you said, Cyclops never really shined. His little optic blasts were, kind of like, okay, you can like knock down a wall or something like that. Like, nah, this dude can like literally do crazy feats with that optic blast. Storm is an Omega level mutant. Like her power over weather is crazy. It has no measurable upper limit. And the way she destroyed these Sentinels in that scene was just absolutely spectacular. It goes to show you just how powerful these mutants really are. And I think it goes to show you why humans are so scared of them, right? And like that's the whole theme. It's like how humans can't comprehend their powers, so they're scared of them. And like I feel like the 90s never did that great of a job of highlighting some of these powers and how crazy they are. I think they improved on it a lot in this new version.
Well, I think in the 90s, Damien, we were still young, so a lot of these topics are pretty heavy for us.
Yeah. I mean, back then we didn't make all. Like we knew that there were subliminal messages with the X-Men, right? But I think we were too young to kind of connect all of those dots. But at then, right, when we were younger. But piggybacking on what Carlos said, about the cameos, like I really love the way they took Morph and he turns into different X-Men, right? As the episode is going, right? Like he turns into Colossus at one point because he needs some muscle, or he'll turn into Angel because he needs to fly, right? And you get all these cameos from from Morph, right? Like, until they actually, they probably come around. But for now, like when he's in battle, like that I saw Cyclops at one point, right? Like I think that was really well done on their part, where they utilized him to kind of like, throw in these bits and pieces of all the other X-Men that aren't in the forefront at the moment. Yo,
I want to piggyback off that comment real quick and talk about a dislike of mine. that whole thing about him like being able to shapeshift into a character and all of a sudden use their powers is weird to me. Like to me, it's
He's talking about Morph.
Morph. Like
Okay.
and Morph is a weird character to begin with because Morph was created literally for the animated show and he was a throwaway character in the 90s, and like I guess they're trying to like kind of bring him in and make him mainstream. He's not from the comic books, or he wasn't in the comic books before the animated show was created.
And that's not the first time Marvel Animation did that. They did that with Firestar, right, Damon?
Right.
Firestar was never Marvel.
No.
Right.
That was an
so Morph is like this throwaway character in the 90s that they're trying to kind of make part of the team, like for real, and give him some spotlight here in the show, which is cool. But the way I kind of like the way my brain understands his powers, like I think he should be able to shapeshift into looking like the character, but like to be able to mimic their powers seems crazy to me. Like it's because that makes him he's pretty broken. He just mimics the most powerful mutant and he's got the access to their power. That's wild.
So you mean you want him to be more like Mystique?
Yeah, correct. Like to me, his power is pretty much Mystique's power, is the way I understood it. But you know, I mean, these are writers; it's whatever the writers choose. I just thought it was weird that he was able to mimic their powers.
But he can't mimic them for long, right? It's like very short amount of time.
I'll be honest, I don't even know. I don't know what the limits of his ability to mimic, because him mimicking their powers is new, right? He didn't do that in the old animated show.
Yeah, he wasn't. I don't remember him too well back then, man. It's like, but
no, they literally killed him in episode 1, and then he came back like 2 or 3 seasons in, like because you know that first episode in the 92 version was when they made the attack on that and on that base, and it ended up being a Sentinel base, and Beast got captured and they killed Morph, and Wolverine was all pissed because he was trying to go back for Morph. So Morph was literally a throwaway character.
But he wasn't dead. Sinister had him, right? Didn't he?
Right. Later, like seasons later, you found out that Sinister had him, but he literally appeared in like max 3 episodes in the entire series in the 90s.
Now, Damien, as an artist, what did you think of the choreography and the animation and the fight scenes? Because that's the part that worried me, and I liked it because in the 90s the choreography was very jumpy. But looking at that Cyclops scene,
I mean, dude, he's just killing it, man. Like, I mean, obviously the highlight of Cyclops is when he was falling. I'm like, okay, well, like who's gonna pick his ass up, right? Like, and then when he pulled that stunt, I was like, God damn, man, wow. And then he had the perfect land. Like, I mean, wow, right? Like, well deserved though, because I think Cyclops is an awesome character. And like I said earlier, for them to give him the credit that he deserves, I think it's due, man. And even when he was fighting in the thing, and he was just kind of like punching and kicking and using his Optic Blast and you know, like he said, instead of just blowing things up. Like I think he's where he should have been a long time ago.
Yeah, but that lasted like 20 seconds because they gave it to Magneto. They took it right from him.
Yeah, but
Cyclops is gonna lead it. Okay, this is your time, and bam, Magneto comes, boom, takes his candy.
But they were also kind of teasing us on whether he was even going to stay with the team or not, right?
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So they have to give you that limbo, right? They gotta like, you know. And is Scott really equipped to like? He can't fill it. He's not like he can't fill Professor X's shoes, right? Like
he's a tactical leader. He's
not a field leader, right? Like, and that makes the most sense, right? He's like
he's a captain. He's not a general.
Exactly.
He doesn't have that emotional kind of empathy with people. He doesn't have that kind of patience, you know. So, any dislikes, Damien, from episode 1? Anything you would have done different?
No, man. I there's not much that I'm disliking per se, you know. I mean, we'll get into it. I think it's, you know, I think you have one with the Jubilee one, but for the first, I mean, to me, my X-Men, I don't remember that from. Was that in the original one? To me, my X-Men, or that's a new thing?
Well, him saying that, I think
to me, that phrase, to me, my X-Men, like
I think Xavier used it at some point. Yeah. But but it's not iconic like Avengers Assemble or something like that.
Right. So it's okay. You know, I guess they have to give it something. It's not horrible. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's you know, it's I could deal with it. You know, it doesn't take away anything from how good things are going.
One thing that I disliked, Ivan, and I think I talked about it with Omar, who I don't know if he'll be able to join or not. But at first, like if it's a continuation of the show, it did, and I think they tried to do it on purpose, but it didn't really hit with me. Like they didn't really connect it to the end of the previous show, right? Like they left you kind of like the way it ended was very different than how this started. And you were wondering if it was even connected at all. You were wondering if, hey, is this a continuation, or are they going to pretend like we don't remember what happened to Xavier at the end of the other show? Because he's dead now. This is weird. Like what? Like they didn't really hit that bridge, or they didn't really do.
They didn't set
and I think they did it on purpose.
You're right. You're right.
I think they did it on purpose, and I think they're going to explain it later. But that was weird to me because at first I was like, Xavier is dead. He didn't die in the last episode of the past one. Like, what's going on? It threw me off.
Yeah, and they didn't kind of. There was never any bridge, like you said. Like they never said 3 months after Xavier disappeared, or
right.
We didn't know where we were at.
Hey, they didn't even do previously on X-Men and like give us like glimpses of the end of the previous season and nothing. They were just
did it through the news report. They did it through the newscast.
Right.
They did it cleverly through like a newscast. Yeah. So yeah, if you're a brand new X-Men watcher and you're coming into it, that kind of leaves you in the dark there. You're right. Now, episode 2. It's called Fire Made Flesh. Magneto's taken. He surrenders, voluntarily surrenders, goes right to the UN into the hearing to answer for his past crimes. This is where it gets a little episode 2, sorry, Mutant Liberation begins.
Yeah.
So Magneto goes into the UN. He volunteers himself willingly, doesn't put up a resistance. That put up a question mark in my head.
Yeah.
Did he manipulate that attack?
1,000%.
You think so?
Absolutely. Magneto is playing chess. These guys are playing fucking checkers, right? Like sometimes, as a creative, when I'm designing things, sometimes people need to see things wrong in order for them to see it right. Right. So he knew at some point when he was there and they were like, why are they attacking us? We didn't do anything. And he said it. And he's like, you gave a monster a trial or something to that effect. Right. And he knew that that's how the crowd was going to react. Right. Because Magneto's he's 10 steps ahead. And it was going to put him in a position where he could show them with how, things wrong so they could see things right. And I think he orchestrated, I don't know if he orchestrated it, but he put the pieces together way before they could even figure it out.
You agree, Kangri?
Yeah, I think so. I think Magneto definitely knew what he was doing and where he was trying to get to in this episode. I think the episode was written beautifully, like fantastic. Like, and I think the way things played out, particularly the way things played out with Storm, to me, that's another thing that the old series it's another thing that they improved on from the old series. The old series was always really good at like stuff happening to the kind of like the characters you don't love, right? Like nothing ever happens to Storm, nothing ever happens to Wolverine, nothing ever happens to Cyclops, nothing ever happens to Jean. Like, you know what I mean? Like in terms of like they're like being taken out or their place on the team being questioned or something like that, unless it's like literally just for a plot purpose for an episode. And so Storm kind of having that moment, sacrificing herself for Magneto, not realizing what she's sacrificing at the time, that was written incredibly.
Why would she do that?
I don't think she did it like for Magneto. I think she's part of a team that is, used to saving people and standing up for people. So I think it was not impulsive. I think it was that's just the norm, right? Like
I agree. I think it's just in her instinct to try to take the bullet for anyone, not specifically for Magneto, right?
Totally. And I don't think she knew that getting hit with that blast was going to take her powers away. She probably, like they refer to Storm as a goddess, right? And she is to a certain she kind of is, right? And I guess when you're that powerful, you kind of think that not much can hurt you, and then until it does, right? So I'm sure she's regretting it now.
I think when she finds out that she loses her powers and like you see in her eyes, like it's very clear, like she was okay if that blast killed her, but she didn't realize this was way worse. Like, in her mind, right?
And this is not the first time somebody takes a bullet for Magneto and he doesn't even say thank you. We saw it in the movie. Mystique took it for him. Storm takes it for him here. He never checked in on her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, right.
He's like, once you're a human, he don't give a fuck. You don't count in his main. Which brings me back to the original question. He wanted the world to see that he's right all along. That humans, at the end of the day, don't give a fuck about mutants. They don't care if you're one of the good ones or one of the bad ones. They just want you dead. Mm-hmm. And Magneto he's willing to take collateral damage to prove his point.
Yeah.
And he's doing it in a passive way where he's just in the background like a victim. And his message is getting across.
Yeah.
And I think he knew about the island attack. In my opinion, I think he's behind that too, but we'll get to that when it's coming up. So, Executioner, the way he whooped Cyclops, you think that's consistent with his character in the comics, Carlos? Because I never remembered him being that badass.
He's not, but they had to make it credible, right? Like you have to make it that in attack, because let's be honest, right? Magneto's Omega level, dude. Like this dude isn't gonna do, like, is not gonna have any chance of like threatening Magneto in any way, shape, or form in reality, understanding how powerful Magneto is, right? Or how powerful Storm is. They had to like kind of make him have his moment. He caught them off guard. They weren't ready. But no, in a real fight, Cyclops manhandles this dude. And Magneto crushes him in 2 seconds.
What do you think, Damon?
I agree. They got to give you something to watch. So, come on, man. Like Cyclops, yeah.
That's when they're giving the new fans, the younger fans, something. It can't always be about us old dudes.
No. I agree with Carlos. And that's not
even Cyclops hand-to-hand skills are up there, right? Like he's not Captain America or Black Panther or anything like that, but like the dude can throw hands. Like he lost his visor, his eyes are closed, but he's not getting manhandled like that in a real fight. Like
he kind of needs to have his hand skills up, though. I mean, because aside from the blast, right? It's not like he hurts, he bleeds. It's not like he's not like Logan where he's gonna regenerate. Yeah. If he gets stabbed, he's gonna feel it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so episode 2 was a hit in your opinion? Anything you would have done?
I think it was setting you up for things to come.
For me, I would say this is other than the island, which we'll get to. This is the best. This is my favorite episode.
Now with the FOH, obviously busting into the hearing, it reminds you of the January 6th thing, and we know that X-Men is all about politics, and I think they did an excellent job of doing that. They kind of put January 6th on steroids there. So kudos to the writers on that. Because like I said, they're making this show for us, that the fans that watched it back in the 90s, and also for the fans today. So
yeah, because I mean, look, my son's watching it. He's no idea about the old stuff, right? So he's watching it through the lens of what's happening now, right? This is his version of what I saw when I was young, when we were young, right? So he has his own memories. He's gonna have his own memories of this.
And that's great, man. That's great. Let's go to episode 3. Fire Made Flesh, right? So this one was about
Madeline Pryor.
Madeline Pryor, You know, she pops up at the end of episode 2. Beast examines her, finds out she's Jean. Well, the visitor is Jean, and
Right.
Madeline Pryor is the one that's pregnant, which is consistent with the comics.
Right.
You know, she's pregnant with Cable, Nathan, who's Cable, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so Scott has been with Madeline this whole time. His real wife jumps into the fray. So it's Jean versus Madeline, Cyclops' dilemma, and his Sinister returns.
Feel bad for Cyclops now. It's like he's getting shit for loving the same fucking woman.
It's not his fault.
It's not even his fault. Like how dare you say that to her? That was our thing. But it's like
that's in episode 5. That's in episode 5. But we see why Madeline was kind of cold to Wolverine at the club. Logan had no idea. He was like, "Yo, you being kind of bitchy." And Madeline had no kind of connection with Logan. She didn't give a fuck about him. She was all about Cyclops. That's why Cyclops was in heaven. He was like, "Damn, finally I got her all to myself. Finally, I don't got to fight this dude for her." Turns out it wasn't Jean. You know, do you think that Cyclops was kind of pissed that the real Jean returned? Because he was basically living it up.
I would not want to be in his shoes, man. That sucks. Because it's like you said, it's like, oh, so she was only into me because it was, you know, it wasn't even her, and then he's dealing with the whole Magneto thing, and then, you know, how come I'm not the lead? He's just pissed off all the way around, right? It's like then his child is gone. He's got so much on his plate. Like, no wonder he lost his shit in the interview.
Exactly. You know,
he lost it. He was just like, I'm done, man. Like, stress on top of stress on top of stress.
Los, what did you think about the whole Madeline situation?
I mean, yeah, how do you even, like, how does anybody deal with that, right? Like, they're first of all, they're virtually the same person. And you have to literally look at them both. And how do you say, oh, well, she's the original, so I love her, but I literally just had a baby with this other chick, and I gotta now pretend that something's wrong with her. Like, it's an impossible situation. The only thing I don't like about this episode is this is a storyline that should have gone across episodes. They should have, like, this whole like Inferno, Madeline Pryor going nuts and all of that. This should have been a 2-part. This should have been episode 3 and 4, in my opinion. They should have drawn it out longer. They should have played it out slower. But other than that, I mean, the way they handled Madeline Pryor, the way they handled, like, and they revealed Sinister, who's kind of behind the scenes on all of this stuff, and clearly he's always been after Jean and Scott. I thought it was perfect. I thought it was well done.
I think this is like a formality kind of episode. Like, they have to introduce this stuff and talk about it to kind of get it out of the way, and then once it's, you know, out on the table, then we can move past it. It's one of those, like, you just have to get through it, put it out there, so we can move on to the next thing.
But, like, for example, I don't like. Okay, that now you got Madeline Pryor who thinks in her mind she's Jean Grey. She has a baby. She finds out that she's not Jean Grey. She goes evil. And then she realizes, nah, never mind. I'm not evil. I should be a good person. In the span of one episode, you got to drag that out, man. Like episode 1 should have ended with Madeline turning on them and being pissed and turning into the Goblin Queen.
They let her off easy.
And then episode 2 should have been the entire fight against the Goblin Queen, and then the climax of it all. You know what I mean? To me, they condense way too much of an emotional span of a person into just one episode. To me, it was rushed.
Yeah, I agree. I think they let her off easy. Madeline, you know.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, you literally just tried to kill us all like 15 minutes ago, but, you know, go find yourself. Like,
Little rough.
And then Jean gets the opportunity to sneak off with Logan while they're fighting. And she gets a little moment with Logan at that episode, which I'd never liked those moments, because I like, even though Wolverine's my favorite guy, I don't like the games that they're playing. From a Cyclops perspective, Cyclops is just, and we're gonna talk about it later. I'm like, dude, man,
don't read the latest run of the comic book then.
Oh, well, all three of them are in bed. I heard
they go
really.
There's like crazy stuff. I know
they not a love triangle no more. They're full out weird meshed family for a little bit. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Like Cyclops is like okay, and Jean is jumping from one to the other, and they both okay with it kind of situation.
That's bullshit, man. That's bullshit.
Cyclops pulling a Diddy.
But so Los, is it safe to say that you really wasn't feeling this episode?
This episode, no. This episode was good. The next episode is the throwaway for me.
Yeah.
This one was good. I just feel like it was rushed. I feel like if they would have taken the amount of story that they explored and just slowed it down and split it into 2 episodes, I think it would have played out better. And I think I would have been more accepting to it. Because again, to me, Madeline went from, I think I'm Jean. Holy shit, I'm not Jean. Fuck all of you guys. Oh, never mind. I need to be good. I need to go find myself. It's a real dramatic spectrum of emotions to go through in one episode, man. To me, this episode should have ended with Madeline mad and turning villain, and then the second episode should have been their fight against Madeline, and then Madeline turning good and all of that. To me, it should have been 2 episodes. It was rushed. That's my only complaint. I don't mind any of the decisions they took with it. They just rushed it, in my opinion.
I agree. Now, Damien, did you like the return of Sinister, or were you hoping that there was another villain that they could have introduced?
No, I think the return of Sinister was good. I think it's time for him to come around. I know there's been talks about putting him in live action and all that stuff. I've always enjoyed his character. I think it's a good character to explore, introduce, put on the table. I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was good. A good introduction.
You like seeing him?
Yeah, I never disliked him.
Yeah, I think Sinister is cool. If they do a live action version of him, obviously they're gonna make him. I don't think they're gonna make him look like this. They'll probably make him look human and just be a evil doctor, like a geneticist that's obsessed with.
But that's what he is. I think
that's what he is. But I'm saying I don't think his look translates to live action.
I think they'll take. He's not gonna be like the teeth are obviously got to be different, but I think they'll make him pale, able to heal. I don't know. I feel like they can make it work, dude. Look, Wolverine's costume, as dope as it is, seeing it in a comic book and everything, in my head, I always thought Wolverine's costume is gonna look stupid in live action, but now they make it look good. They make it look good now, and so
the mask has always been on the fence, right?
Right.
He looks great without it, right? He just boom, he just got it. And even with the uniform on, I saw with no mask. It's the mask, right? It's this thing up here. Can't look easy.
But how do you see cosplays today now that make it look amazing, right? I just feel like there's ways to do it.
I feel like
it has to be practical. It has to be functional. Yes. That thing has to do something. It can't just be hanging like that.
Think about Captain America's mask, right? I was those little wings, right? And then they did it in a way where I was oh, that's not bad. Doesn't look bad at all. So,
well, they got rid of them after a while, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. But the first one they had it, right?
No. The first one they had the wings when he was doing the theater shows to get the bonds for the war. He had the wings out.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And then by the time he became an Avenger, the wings were just painted onto the helmet.
Right.
It was the helmet. the wings like that was sticking out was when he was doing the that little Broadway shit that he was doing to get the money for the war.
Yeah,
and that
the
made
one
sense.
where he punches Hitler every time or whatever.
Exactly. All right, so episode 4, and shout out to everybody watching. Participate in the comments, and we'll get to your questions if you have any. Carlos and Damon are the professionals here. I'm just the host, man. I'm just a junkie. Episode 4. Everybody says it's a throwaway episode.
Garbage.
But I think there is some opportunity here because it's a part 1, right?
Well, no.
Part 2 came out today, but listen.
But it's not but it's like, no, it's like, it's almost like it's 2 episodes, right? There's the Mojo nonsense, and then there's Storm's arc. And I think the part 1 is Storm's arc. Like,
yes, you're right. The Mojo nonsense is for the younger audience. We got to remind ourselves.
But I was young in the 90s, and I
didn't
thought
like Mojo then.
That Mojo episode was always a throwaway, man. Like, always.
Yeah.
I think this paid a little homage. I don't know if you remember Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. They had an episode with Electro, and then they had the villain come out of the video game, and they call him Video Man. Do you remember that episode? And Spider-Man, and they were fighting this guy who was very like digital.
Yeah, pixelated. Yes.
Yeah, very pixelated, and he was like shooting stuff from his arm. So I think that was probably some homage to that episode. But for me, I'm not a fan of Jubilee. Like, I never really resonated with the character. She's throwing fireworks out. Like, if she didn't exist, I wouldn't be upset. Like, I just don't get it. I'm not a fan.
Well, Jubilee, if you follow the comics, she's a Chinese orphan. Her parents were billionaires, and they died, and a family took her up. She got her power. She was a mutant, and by the way, the great thing about Marvel and the X-Men story is they don't develop their powers until they hit puberty, because if they were babies, they'd have to kill their parents at birth. So that explains that, until you hit puberty, that's when the powers come in. With Jubilee, if you follow her story in the comics, she becomes a vampire. She adopts a kid, and then some character comes in, I forgot, and gets her powers back. But she was a vampire for a while. I got the Marvel. I'm a geek. I got the Marvel encyclopedia. So
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, no, it's not in the cartoons.
Okay.
Jubilee was used as our eyes into the X-Men world, kind of like what they did with Wolverine in our first X-Men movie, where that's where we get to know everybody. Jubilee goes into the school, if you remember from the original series, and she's like, "What are you guys? What is this place?" And then we see it through her eyes. But is she being underutilized? And if she is, what can she offer? Because in this episode, that older version of her is kind of telling her to grow up and telling her, listen, you got to mature your powers. Because remember, there was one scene where she was like, I didn't know I could do that.
I think the problem is that, like, okay, so to me, 90s Jubilee is like 70s and 80s Kitty Pryde. She's always supposed to be like the little sister character on the team. And so I think that's kind of the role that they give her. And it's the role that she played in the 90s. I would like to see her grow into her own, find ways for her powers to be more kind of useful and all that. I think there's an opportunity there, but I'm kind of with Damon on this one. I was never like a super big fan of the character. Like, if she's there, she's fine, but she's never like stealing the show. She's never taking, a big role. Like, I can't think of any single storyline where she and I remember Kitty Pryde having a huge role in some storylines, but Jubilee never really did. And I think it's going to take the Marvel writers to create some creative juices to like give her like a real central role in something, but I don't see it.
She never did anything for me to pay that much attention to her. Like, all the stuff you just told me, is news to me. Like the vampire, like I have no idea. Only because I just never really cared enough about her to pay attention. You know, there were so many other awesome characters that I wanted to like really hone in on them. So I just kind of, it was very easy to just kind of be like, yeah, whatever, Jubilee. Like I'd rather like.
So you wish that she was replaced by somebody else, like maybe one of the original X-Men, because they needed to use her as a story anchor for us to get into the mansion. You know,
Yeah.
found her, they brought her in. If you remember the original series, they brought her in and from the arcade and blah blah blah. So she was kind of a tool, but she never matured because I think she's only 18.
18.
Right? Yeah.
She's only 18 because that was her birthday. She's like, oh, I'm turning 18.
There you go.
I think Kitty Pryde would have been a better choice to play this role because they could have made Kitty Pryde younger, and I think Kitty Pryde's ability to phase through walls and things like that would have been more interesting. It would have given her the opportunity to be more useful in certain situations. Whereas, like, let's be those fireworks, other than being a distraction, they're just not a very useful power that they can write into like her playing some critical role. I've always felt like Kitty Pryde would have been a better fit for this kind of for that role of like the little sister, the one that gets brought into the team and she's learning the ropes, but she's inexperienced. I just feel like Kitty Pryde would have been a better choice for that.
Yeah, I agree. So the interesting part of this episode was obviously the Storm and Forge story.
Yeah.
Where she lost her powers. We know that. She goes to Forge, confesses to her that he developed the new Sentinel power, that the new Sentinel technology that Executioner used to take away her powers. She smacked him across the face for doing that. And she wants her powers back, but you know, she sees that demon owl in the sky and she's struggling. I think that's the most interesting story so far in the series, is her trying to get her powers back. What do you guys think?
Definitely.
I think when they introduced this, it finally was like, all right, enough with Jubilee. Let's get back to what's important. And I love, you know, Storm as a character. I really really do love. So, you know, seeing her go through this and struggle the way she's struggling, it was, you know, again, just going back to what I said, it was like, oh, okay, fine, Jubilee. But then as soon as Storm came on, like my attention span was right back there, right? Like I was like, okay, what's going on? I want to know. Let's watch this. So it saved the episode, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
No, I think for sure, like, I think the storyline of Storm kind of finding out how to get her powers back, and then the involvement of Forge, an old character that's kind of always kind of loosely tied to the team. I'm a big fan of that. I know they're gonna have like a little love situation or a romantic situation. They had that in the comic books. That's cool. I thought this part of the episode was cool. It just, you know, it was like a little taste. It was like they were, you know.
Now the ending with the demon, do you think that's just in her head? That's like her other personality, her consciousness? Or was that owl a real entity?
I mean, I don't want to answer because I saw today's episode. So.
So if it's connected, we can't actually talk about it.
Okay, so all right, so that's what next one. Okay.
How about this? I'll do my best to tell you what I thought at the time that I watched it. I thought it was a psychic thing. I thought it was going to be some variation of Shadow King or something like that, which has connections to her and was in the episode in the 90s. That's where I thought they were going. I thought it was like some psychic character creating all this stuff in her head.
That's what I think too. You know, anytime any of those demons pop out, I always think it's just a demon inside of them manifested outside.
Right. Everybody has demons that they're facing, right? Something to that effect, something abstract like that.
Maybe it is. Watch today's episode.
Okay, I'm gonna have to watch today's episode.
Yeah.
All right, episode 5, which is the big one. Hold on, I'm gonna have to
hit the horn.
I got my red label here.
Yeah, I need to grab it.
I was not prepared for that one. I don't think anybody was. That episode, just from an animation perspective, was a masterpiece. You know, absolutely. The writing was great. The artwork was great. Just the pacing of it was great.
Absolutely.
Man, you know,
the distraction of the love triangle between Gambit, Rogue, Magneto, bringing in Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler, top 5 X-Men for me always. Yeah. I wish he was a part of the main team. He has some of the most amazing moments in the comic books, in my opinion. But like, I love Nightcrawler. I think, yeah, like you said, the pacing, right? Like the whole in the new comic book that's in place right now, mutants kind of get their own home. It's not Genosha. And they like, it was kind of taking little pieces of that with the whole, like trying to create our own government and establish like a leader and joining the UN and all these, like the politics of like mutants being their own nation and still finding a way to interact with the world. I felt like they borrowed from the latest storyline really well without going into like what that storyline went into, because it doesn't make sense to do without a lot of other stuff that's happened. Magneto had the zinger about when they were like, usually, you know, countries don't elect terrorists as their leaders. They're like, nah, they just let their leaders be terrorists. Like that line was vicious. This is the best episode so far, in my opinion. Like you said, the pacing was great, and then obviously once the action goes down, and the emotional ties of like actually like losing the characters, losing beloved characters. Again, this show is not afraid to like
cross the line,
tug at your heartstrings, cross the line, kill off your favorite, like your this Gambit's a big time favorite for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and we don't know what's happening with Magneto, right? And so, to me, that just chef's kiss.
Magneto's very nonchalant. He seems to always be at the right place at the right time.
He's got the right temperament at the right time, even when shit's going down. Like, he's just, I don't know. It's there's something.
He sets himself up in a nice position where he looks like he gives a fuck. I don't know, man. So let's slow cook this, right? It starts off, Scott is in some drama with Jean. We know what's going on.
Some poor man.
Like, you know, she's giving him hell. She just woke up from her coma.
Oh, fuck.
She finds out that he's communicating with Madeline, who he's been in love. Now, has it been established how long Jean has been away?
No, because they even said, right, because Sinister gave Madeline Jean's memories. Neither one of them know at what point they swapped, right? Because Jean says that, I don't remember if it was in this episode. She's like, I can't even trust which memories are mine or which memories are, you know, like they don't know at what point they got swapped. So Madeline and her remember the same things, and so they don't know at what point it happened, essentially.
So you can't blame Scott. This woman just had his baby. He's been in love with her, thinking it's you the whole time. Meanwhile, you playing loose with Logan over here.
If anybody's a victim, it's Scott.
Who's the sucker in this situation? I know we talked about this a little bit in Omar's thread. Shout out to Omar. I know he's listening. I wish he could have joined, but he got to work. You know, he said, who's the sucker in the triangle? I think Scott's the sucker, but I'm on his side.
Well, I mean, They always make you feel
defeated
bad
too.
for Scott. I feel like, when Wolverine gives him shit, you always want to side with Scott. Like this. I feel like he's always the victim.
Yeah,
He's the real, like he's the true victim.
but
Like Magneto makes himself out to be the victim, but Scott is the fucking victim.
and my thing is, he never really checks Jean. Like either
He tried to a little bit.
I know I'm the stable guy, I'm the Boy Scout, but I know you're tingling for Logan. He's the one that gets you tingling.
Well, he did it. He said something like, "Oh, do you love me, or am I just a lovely memory?" And then she just faints, right? Like, and he's like, "Are you okay?" Like like they're mind fucking him.
Bro.
The minute he stands up for himself, he's got to go back immediately and be like, "Are you okay?"
So is she a hypocrite, Carlos? Or do you feel bad for her?
I mean, I don't think there's any realistic way to try to analyze this situation. And like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, first of all, like, is Scott the victim to a degree? Sure. But like, we're gonna really make it seem like Jean Grey is like this like toxic, toxic crazy word. Like, dude, she was literally kidnapped, fam. Like, you know what I mean? She had literal time robbed from her.
No. She's been playing this way before that with Logan.
What?
Yeah, but
she's been playing this game with Logan way before that. And Logan's the only one that checks her on that. He's the only one that tells her, listen, go to you would belong with him. I like you, but I'm gonna play my position over here. She's always the one that seeks him out. She's toxic. I'm sorry. And let me tell you something. She's my favorite X-Men. Is Jean Grey, just from her powers perspective. She could do whatever the fuck she wants, but she's out of pocket, man. Somebody got to check her. Scott can't do it, because he loves her so much. Professor X knows what's going on. He never got involved and told them to cut it out.
That's not his job.
Exactly. Well, when they were younger, yeah, he could have said, "Listen, Logan, leave him alone," or Jean.
When he was younger, Logan is older than Professor X.
Yeah, but Scott and Jean been together since they was teenagers.
Man, I don't know.
Logan came in; he was already 200 years old.
Yeah,
So I'm like, bro.
I don't know. That's not Professor X's job.
Pick a struggle, sis. Isn't that what they say? You're either gonna struggle with Logan or you're gonna struggle with Scott. But she's playing both of them. She's playing both of them, man.
A lot of dudes do that anyway, so
I don't know, man. Who would you be? Who would you be in a situation, Carlos? Who would you want to be in a situation if you had to pick?
If I had to pick between Scott and Logan,
yeah,
dude, they're both losing, right? Like neither one of them has her, so they're both losing.
Yeah, but I think
she's Scott's girl.
Logan don't have. They had a kid, right? He could just walk away.
Exactly. So for her to be mad at Scott for being in love with her, or thinking he was in love with her when he was in love with Madeline, having a kid with Madeline, she's in love with Scott. She goes consoles. I mean, goes to Logan for consolation. And kisses Logan. Logan wasn't even looking for that kiss. I mean, come on, we'll play it again.
Dude, I think again, like
she's hurting.
You know what this conversation reminds me of? This conversation reminds me of like Infinity War when people get mad at Star-Lord for like smacking Thanos and like they were gonna take the glove off. It's like, it's like you expect people to be rational. She was kidnapped.
Yes.
And she came back to find out that her clone had a child with her boyfriend, regardless of whether she's toxic or not. This idea that she should just be rational right now and be like, nah, you're out of pocket. Like, come on, people aren't rational.
Yeah, but she's been playing this game before this. You know
Don't
that.
matter. It don't matter. Like, none of us, like, this idea that human beings, when emotional, crazy stuff happens to them, that they're just gonna sit there and be like, let me be logical real quick. It's absurd. Like,
Okay.
I just
Listen, hey, listen, I respect that. So Cyclops has the right to be angry then.
yes, agree. Of course.
Okay.
He ain't got no like
He
similar
has
like
no
yeah,
right to
he's
be
as much of a
angry.
victim of this whole situation. He didn't know he was impregnating a clone. Like, yeah, how is he supposed to he ain't do nothing wrong in his eyes.
If anybody deserves to do whatever they want, it's Scott.
Yeah, but that's not in his genes. That's not in his
No.
personality. He's a Boy Scout. So they're all victims, right?
Yeah. They are. Their circumstances are crazy. Like, it's not like none of them did this to each other, right? Like, I don't know.
Okay. All right. So they have that fight, right? Scott's thinking about his baby mama. He's thinking about his son. There's another love triangle right here. Boom.
Yep.
How do we explain this? You
Well,
know, Rogue and Gambit.
okay.
Well,
Like, I don't know. I don't know if Gambit's in the friend zone. I think she's really attracted to him. She just can't touch him.
Right. No, they definitely have a thing. It's just, the thing is hard. He can't touch her. And he tries. He be like, worth it. Like, just kiss me anyway. And like, nah, she's like, no, because I'm not gonna hurt you. So I think for Gambit, her power is just makes him the ultimate loser in this situation, especially because Magneto can bypass that. But
she looks up to Magneto and she admires Magneto.
But they have a past too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but they listen, Rogue at the end of the day, like, everybody needs compassion. They need to do what they got to do, right? So Rogue is limited in who she can do that with. So, she had a moment of, vulnerability, right? And Magneto's saying all the right things, right? So people need what they need. So she took it.
Yeah.
But I think if you could put the fact that if she could touch Gambit, then it would be Gambit, right?
Definitely, because they're both from the South.
She had to do what she had to do, right? Like, people need that sense of touch, that.
And the thing is with Magneto, he got that gift of gab. He's like,
he's
the difference between him and Charles. Charles Charles would tell her, you're special, you got gifts, but Magneto would tell you, you're a goddess, you're above everything. That fucking that's like intoxicating.
What Gambit does too is just
Gambit got yeah.
I think this was so clever for them to do this triangle. It takes some emphasis off what we're already used to seeing, which is, Jean, Scott, Logan thing, right? Like, because that thing's been done and over, and so this is like a nice, new, fresh, introduction to another triangle. It takes the emphasis off them and gets your attention on something else. And the way they wrote it, that he could bypass that and be as smooth as he is and all that stuff, I think it was just genius.
Yes, and I think this episode shows the mutants' human side. I think that was the real thing. They weren't really mutants; they were humans in this episode. Everything they did was relatable. We've all been in those situations where you're in love with a girl and she might not love you as much, or maybe you can't really be with her the way you want to be with her, or she's not ready. It's so relatable. This didn't feel like an X-Men episode. It just felt like,
a soap opera.
Exactly. People getting into a situation. Old friends connected. You see Nightcrawler, which was great.
Yeah, he's dope.
Because when was the last time he was in an X-Men cartoon? Right before this was like might have been. They didn't really show him in the 90s. Yeah, he's your favorite.
He's one of my favorites. Yeah, definitely.
You know, and you know, so to recap, they go to Genosha. The High Council is there. They offered Magneto the job to be king. He accepted. He proposes Rogue as his queen.
Right.
She's pissed off at first, but then I think she agrees. We never see her say yes, but she kind of agrees with her body language because
And
then
she kind of
breaks-
agrees with how she turned down Gambit.
exactly.
Well, yeah. Then she came in and she did her own little introduction. They had their dance, and then they kissed, and then she was like, "Man, he was right."
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everything's going well. Episodes are getting a little boring, and then Cable shows up, and then boom, here we go.
Right. I like that. I like that Cable showed up. I like that they finally, for the casual watcher who doesn't read the comic, I like that they connected Cable to Nathan. Right. They made it clear.
Right, that he made it. He survived. He
was the one. Yeah. So when Jean Grey's had that nosebleed, that was Cable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Telling her that something's gonna happen. That's how I took that.
Right.
He was communicating in the future, right?
Yes.
Well, he physically slid into because he can time travel too. We've seen him already in the 90s episode a couple of times time traveling, right? So, but I do think he also has psychic powers that are crazy, that are limited by that disease that he got, that Sinister infected him with. And so I think he tried to communicate with them, and because it was two of them, it caused the crazy issue, like psychic blowback for both of them. And then I think he had to go back, and he didn't get a chance to warn them at the right time, or kind of did, but not really.
So tell us about, what was going through your mind during this scene when the attack happened, the timing of it with the gala, when Magneto sort of coming out party, for lack of a better term, his coronation. Was he behind it? What were your thoughts? Well, Damon, tell us.
Magneto behind the attack?
Yes. Was he willing to prove his point? Is he willing to sacrifice this many mutants? That's what I was kind of.
I don't think he was behind it. I don't think so. Because at the end of the day, he's always standing up for mutants, right? Like that's the one thing that he will not tolerate is mutants getting wrong.
Right, you got
mutants, but mutants doesn't matter whether they're friend or foe. In his eyes, a mutant is a brother. It's to some degree to him.
Yeah, but we've seen him say that some mutants are pawns. He would use a pawn to gain a bigger advantage over the humans,
but not massacre so many of his own, though.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know about that. It had big Terminator vibes. That whole, coming in from the future, and then this whole,
And again, I'm gonna say this whole episode, this whole scene mimicked literally a comic book storyline. New X-Men. No, I did not think Magneto's behind it.
No,
at all.
Not that.
I don't think Magneto's behind it. I think someone else is behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's like Bolivar Trask or the Friends of Humanity or anything like that. I think
do they reveal it in episode 6?
They don't have that. Yeah, I don't think Trask or the Friends of Humanity or even Gyrick have that kind of foresight. They don't have that ambition to take out a whole island.
Damon, short answer to your question, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So we see Magneto, Nightcrawler is taken out, but he's alive. Magneto goes into hero mode.
Yeah. Epic,
I'm
by the
still
way.
not convinced. He saves Leech, the Morlock. He's protecting him. Is it an act? We don't know. He says all the right words.
I believe it.
So
No, I believe he's being
I
genuine.
believe it.
I don't.
I
Think
believe it.
Yeah, I don't think he has any ulterior motives other than trying to save as many as possible and making the best, save of the day out of the situation. I don't think Magneto. No, I don't.
Yeah, I think again, like kind of like Damon said, as long as it's mutants, when it comes to mutants, you got to remember Magneto does not see himself as a villain. Magneto sees himself as the mutant hero or anti-hero, at least, right? He's willing to do the dirty things for mutants, but he doesn't see himself as a villain. And so to me, he definitely sees himself in that situation as the hero. He definitely, Genosha is what he was hoping for, which is a mutant nation. He goes into like defense mode. He's trying to defend his island, his people, and especially because if it wasn't Sentinels, if it was other mutants, other things, who knows? But it's Sentinels. They're literally mutant hunters. He sees it's what he probably hates the most on this planet, right?
Right, because in his, the humans created the Sentinels, right? That's what he said earlier. So,
yep.
In his head, he's like, "Fuck this!" Like, no.
So here we go. Storm sees Magneto getting taken out.
Yeah, man.
And
This right here was
experience. Yeah.
I mean, he went out with a bang, though. Like, come on. If you're gonna go out, that's how you go out. His little smirk. Remember it.
Yeah, the name's Gambit, mon ami.
Right.
So, what were you thinking in this situation? For Gambit to be the guy to sacrifice himself, because he was such a selfish guy, like throughout the 90s.
Yeah.
He was like even more selfish than Wolverine.
Yep.
He wasn't a team player, but Rogue.
Like Wolverine was never, in my opinion, Wolverine was never selfish. Wolverine was definitely ready to go to bat for his people, right? Like Wolverine was the one that when Morph got killed and like Beast was like attacked, like the Night of the Sentinels, the very first episode, Wolverine was the one that was trying to go back, and Scott had to like blast him so that he couldn't. Right?
He was doing that because he wanted to do it his way. He said, "I'm going to do what I want to do." That's what he told Scott.
But he was going back for Beast. He wasn't. It's not. He wasn't doing his own thing to go get drunk or go party or anything like that. He was doing his own thing to go save his teammates, right? So, yeah, Wolverine has his selfish moments in the sense that he thinks he knows best and that everything has to be his way. But no, Gambit literally is like, he grew up with thieves. He's like survival of the fittest. You figure, you do what you got to do for yourself. You look out for yourself, and yeah, to literally, I understand him sacrificing himself for Rogue, but to sacrifice himself for everyone, right? Yeah, it's a nice full circle character moment.
Yeah, what do you think, D?
Yeah, no, I agree. That wasn't the guy that I saw going first. If I'm going to be, like he was just. I thought he was going to be, and I hope they don't bring him back right away or whatever the case. Like, you have to let that shit simmer, because then it loses its validity, right? Like, what he sacrificed himself for, right? Like, I'm sure at some point they may work something out, but they need to let him. They need to let him be dead for a minute. Like,
I'm gonna say this, and it's not a spoiler by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's way more likely that Magneto somehow survived and is still alive and comes back. I think Gambit's for real. Now,
well, I agree. I mean, Gambit's he's dead. He's dead. But I think Magneto has to come back.
Yeah, Magneto had, he had a protective shell over him. So,
but the part that's tricky is Magneto was the Omega level mutant, and the Sentinel said Omega level threat extinguished or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but I agree. I think it's way more likely that Magneto is still alive, and I think Magneto still has a role to play. So
I agree. So so what do you think happens with Rogue now? You know, she lost in her mind, she lost both her loves.
right.
Does she stick around, or does she do usually what X-Men do when they have a great loss? They take a sabbatical and they go on like a, you know, in the comics that always happens where they experience something huge and they just go disappear, and then they make like 5 comic books about them in like the wilderness.
Yeah, Wolverine when Magneto like ripped the adamantium from his skeleton, he went on a weird sabbatical.
And he met up with Havoc, right? And then they got into
Yeah,
it. Because I bought that book. I remember in the late '80s, the Havoc versus Wolverine.
yeah.
So, what do you think happens with Rogue? What would you like to see?
Honestly, I want to see somebody go dark, and more than anybody, I want to see Cyclops go dark. I want to see Cyclops go down a dark path.
He's not far off.
Yeah, he's really mad right now.
He's mad, and it's what happened in the comic books, and it's the period of time that I think Cyclops is the most interesting. He goes from the Boy Scout hero to like disappointed hero to anti-hero. He starts crossing lines and being real sketchy, and the next thing you know, by the time we hit Avengers versus X-Men, he's like a flat out villain. Like he's by the time we hit Avengers versus X-Men, he's flat out Magneto.
So you want to see the leather jacket Cyclops?
I want to see Cyclops go down a dark path. At the very least, become like more of an anti-hero. I want him sanctioning Black Ops type X-Men stuff, X-Force type stuff.
And well, he was X-Factor, right?
No, Cyclops was X-Men, but what happened was there's
X-Factor.
No, X-Factor was the government one. X-Factor was like the government sanctioned one. X-Force was the Black Ops type team.
X-Force was the Black Ops one.
And so there was an iteration of X-Force where like Cyclops went up to Wolverine and said, "I need you to do the stuff that the X-Men can't do. I need you to go out and assassinate. I need you to go out and do crazy stuff." And like I don't think they're gonna go that. This is X-Men 97. It's animated. They're not gonna go down that far in dark. But I want him to go. I want him to be like, no, I want revenge. Or you know what I mean? Like I need somebody to go dark. This is a mutant massacre. Like I need somebody to go dark.
I don't think Rogue is gonna go anywhere. I think she's gonna stay. She's so pissed off. She's probably got revenge on her. All right, come on.
Well, she's gonna want to kill somebody.
Yeah, somebody's gonna somebody's gonna get it. She's got to stick around.
Interesting. Yeah, man, a lot of good developments here, brothers. So that's episode 5, right? And thank you everybody that's been watching. We're gonna do a follow-up after the next series of episodes. Carlos, you already saw the newest one.
Go watch it. Go watch.
I'm halfway through it.
A lot of the stuff that we talked about today
gets answered.
That is unanswered questions and stuff. Like there's at least 2 things that we talked about today that get answered in today's episode. Go watch it. It's good. It also has like its 2 separate parts. Okay. Very much like the Jubilee episode and the Storm episode, but it's not no Jubilee throwaway. Both parts are critical, essential parts of the storyline for sure.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah. So, final question. Favorite mutant of all time? And it doesn't have to be an X-Men. It could be one of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Who's your favorite?
That's rough. I think Damon has an easy answer.
It's always going to be Logan, and it's not cliche. It's like I don't know, man. As a kid, the minute I discovered him, I couldn't. It just was it for me. I remember going to the comic book store. I remember, I so vividly. I remember comics were 75 cents, $1, right? So the Wolverine #1 was on the wall. It was in the back. It was $15. Right, $15 at then was like, damn man, where am I gonna get $15 from? I remember doing whatever I needed to do to save up to get that $15 because I had to have that Wolverine #1. You know, with him with the claws and he's like going like this. It just that character just it resonates with me in the comic book world, outside of the comic book world. I don't know. Just he's always been his demeanor, his attitude. It just runs parallel with how I think and do and all that stuff. You know, so I don't know. I
Yo,
love
Damon.
playing as him.
Yo, Damon, I got that Wolverine 50, the one that like where he switches from the brown costume to the yellow costume, and it's like a yellow thing with like literally like Wolverine claws going through it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's just such a beautifully designed comic book, man.
It's, you know, and then I think even the one with his claws, and then the Hulk is in the reflection, the Gray Hulk. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Oh, and that was an Incredible Hulk issue. So like that was another one. I'm like, it's just all the artwork that I've seen of him. You know, like oh my god, he's just I don't know, he's just perfect in my opinion.
Okay, so Damon, he's riding with Wolverine. What about you, Los?
This is a tough one. I probably have like 5, but I'm gonna cut it down. I'm gonna go villain for this one. My favorite mutant villain is Apocalypse. I absolutely love Apocalypse. I love his power set. The fact that he's like the oldest mutant and that he's this immortal, crazy, powerful. Every time I read a storyline that has Apocalypse, I learn something else about him that I absolutely love. I just love everything about that character.
The great thing about Apocalypse that I like is that he can get powerful, those alpha mutants to bend to his will just by talking to them.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to like torture them or anything. He could just talk to them.
That's another level mutant, man.
Yeah.
That's a different.
I mean, there's a storyline of him literally like back in like when Thor was young, fighting Thor and basically beating Thor. Like, you know what I mean? Like the dude was a monster, dude. Like he's crazy.
They didn't do him justice in the movie.
Oh no, that movie was
That movie
crazy because he's such a great actor, but he was terrible, man.
Yeah.
The makeup was horrible. I mean, it looked very.
Nah, he deserves so much better. He's a great character. Apocalypse is, yeah.
So Apocalypse, your all-time fave.
I mean, it's hard to name one all-time fave, but Apocalypse is my favorite mutant villain for sure.
Mine, even though I went hard on her, and I always will continue to because of the game she's playing with my man Logan and my man Cyclops. But my favorite is Jean Grey, aka Lady Marvel.
I don't want peace. I want problems always.
She's my favorite. She can do whatever the fuck she wants.
You like that? You like that meme, bro? I don't want peace. I want problems always.
Yes. I mean, she nobody can control her. She's the ultimate.
And Dark Phoenix is my favorite iteration of G2.
There was Dark Phoenix.
Saga, like I was like, damn. Like,
so Dark Phoenix saga was crazy.
Yeah,
Dark Phoenix is. I mean, that was my favorite part of Jean.
So explain to me the difference between the Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix, because there was 2.
I mean, okay, so
like,
Phoenix it was like one thing, but really, so Phoenix again, they went to a mission in space, and some cosmic entity took over for her, and she became like crazy powerful. So like the Phoenix Force is this crazy cosmic entity. It's as powerful as like Galactus and all these other cosmic characters. And so Jean got a massive power boost. And at first she was good, right? She could control it. It was all good. And so I think that was Phoenix. That was when she was like, she had the green costume, right? Like little by little, like it kind of corrupted her and she started kind of losing her mind and she started going crazy. And then she started turning. When she turns to the red costume, she's like Dark Phoenix, and she's like the Phoenix Force essentially corrupts her, and she becomes a villain. And then it becomes this whole thing, like the Shi'ar trying to kill her, all this crazy stuff. It's a dope storyline.
It's very similar to the way the Simeon Knight takes over Spider-Man, and he can he's cool with it, then he's not cool with it. Like it's like the floor level version of the
Yeah, like it like the Force starts to affect her personality, her everything, and kind of turns her villain essentially.
Okay, so this has been great, fellas. We got to do this again.
Yeah, man.
You got to do another one when the season's over.
Yes,
and you got to loop in a bunch of others fans, and then we have to collaborate.
we're gonna get Omar. We're gonna get Marcel in, and maybe Lizette. I know Lizette is a big Marvel fan. Jen is a big Marvel fan. So we got a couple of Marvel movies coming up. And I want you guys to tell me which one are you most looking forward to seeing. I know we got Deadpool in July, right?
That's
Then we got Craven from the Sony Spider-Verse. They've been flopping. And after that, I think it's is it what, Blade?
I mean, Blade. I think whoever that guy, I forget his name, but
Mahershala Ali.
He's still there. He's in.
I think that was a phenomenal choice.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see him play the part.
Yeah. I know they're doing rewrites and stuff, but do you think the Deadpool Wolverine movie, if it has to succeed, because Marvel now, the last couple of movies haven't been performing up to what they thought or what they projected they were going to perform up to. This Deadpool and Wolverine, there's a lot of stuff been coming out. Ryan Reynolds has been very on top of it as far as who the cameos are going to be. He wants to satisfy the fans. He doesn't want to upset some fans. What are you looking forward to? What's your thinking here, Los? What do you think?
So I'm gonna be real honest. Deadpool is not one of those characters that I love a lot. Like he's cool, he's funny, he breaks the fourth wall. That's not really my thing. They've done it well with the Deadpool movies. Ryan Reynolds kind of is the perfect person to play that character. I think if they connect it and bring in the mutants full blown into the Marvel universe, I think it's something that people really want, because Marvel for the most part has been making hits with the B side, right? The mutants are like the A side for real. So I think Wolverine finally, whatever they're gonna end up doing long term with Wolverine, they've already made cameos with the mutants and the Marvels. I know a lot of people whatever about the Marvels. I thought it was good. I think Deadpool versus Wolverine, I think they're gonna do it right. I think Ryan Reynolds kills that character, and I think they're gonna do a good job with it.
I'm hoping that they pass the baton over to X-23. I'd really love to see the exploration of that character more. As opposed to finding somebody else to. I'm thinking there's a lot of people that probably can play Wolverine, right? But I feel like, Hugh Jackman he is Wolverine. Like he's the guy. So. To just fill in the spot. I saw Henry Cavill is going to play some type of version of him in another world, and I'm not saying that's bad, but I'd rather see an exploration of X-23 than finding a new actor to play Wolverine moving forward right away. I think they could put that to bed and then see what happens with her. And the fact that she's older now, right? Because she was so young when she first did it. The fact that she's older now and she's more mature, I think it would be the perfect.
No, and I really like that actress. I don't know if you guys watched the Dark Materials on HBO. I thought she did a great job with that. So.
If they did a spinoff and she was the Wolverine moving forward.
She wants to do it. She wants to do it. She said it.
For the next couple of movies, right? She filled that, and then later on bring in another actor to loop back in Logan. But for now, I hope that's what they do.
So do you think the MCU should kind of take a break from the Avengers and just focus on mutants, maybe for the next couple of years.
I mean, they still haven't. I think outside of Days of Future, Days of Future Past, that all the other ones were like, yeah.
But like, I think you gotta kill off. Let's be honest. Other than Deadpool and Fox, other than Deadpool and Logan, that whole Fox stuff was trash, right?
It
like
was.
they had one or two good movies. Like First Class was all right. Days of Future Past was solid, but other than that, just, like to me, that's why when people get mad at me when I say this, I'm like, just kill off that whole universe, Logan included. Even though the Logan movie was dope, Hugh Jackman solid Wolverine. Just kill off that whole universe and reboot them is what I would.
But that's what they're doing. Like we saw
that they're bringing the same actors, so it's not really they're not really killing it off. What they're doing is like bringing it in, right? Because like they use the same
actors are bankable. Those actors make money.
Some of them,
no,
you can recast some of them.
It makes money.
You recast it. They dropped Ed Norton to bring in what's his name, Mark Ruffalo. You can recast some of these motherfuckers. Like.
Yeah, I thought they should have recasted T'Challa. They didn't do that. I mean, I'm a huge Black Panther fan. I'm like, dude.
I thought so too, but I don't hate what they did with Black Panther 2, but
look, Black Panther 2 was good. You still could have done it, and you could have recast it. You still could. It would have worked. You're missing a lot of, and they might retcon that shit. They might do some, because we're in the time travel universe. They might bring him back, and they might recast him,
right?
But
or do what they did with Gamora, right? Bring a version of T'Challa from an alternate universe in the mix.
Bang, there you go. But I agree. Listen, I think
they're stupid not to use the dude from The Office as Mr. Fantastic. I still don't understand why.
He was good.
Like Multiverse of Madness, like wrote them off real quick, but he was awesome. Right? I don't know why they're not using him.
Krasinski was good.
He was good. I don't understand what happened with that either. Like, not that I have anything against Pedro Pascal, but like that shit was not broken. Why you fixing it?
I don't know why they want the Fantastic Four to be the group for some reason. That's why they keep reincarnating them. They keep doing it over and over again. And they never get it right. Yeah. The first Fantastic Four was okay for what it was. It was very comic booky. It was whatever. I was younger then. I kind of liked it. But now, with all this new shit coming out, they need to step it up. And I don't think they're heading in the right direction. I think Pedro Pascal was a desperation casting.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But listen, fellas, we could go all night with this. It was a pleasure. Everybody that watched, I'm going to put the highlights up soon. We're going to come back. How many more episodes of X-Men 97 do we got left? This is 6 today. Are they going to break it up? They're going to do a Walking Dead on it and split it up, or we're going to get to see it for the full
I have no idea.
Episodes.
I don't know how many episodes. I heard that they have enough for like 2 seasons.
For season,
they've written enough for 2 seasons.
They're gonna go to 10. They're gonna go to 10, and season 2 and 3 are already under development.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do part 2. After something crazy happens, we'll do the second review.
I think you should do it after season 1, man. Like in a month.
In a month, like at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, the last episode airs May 15th.
Okay, May 15th. All right, so let's do it right after.
Yeah.
All right.
We're good? All right, fellas.
All right, man. Thanks for putting this together, man.
Everybody, it's been a pleasure. See you soon.
All right, man.